Rian didn't lower his guard. The woman Lyra, though he didn't yet know her name, stood with the same calm as she had shown. From the moment he entered, her posture was relaxed, but her eyes stayed sharp, as if measuring every possible move he might make. "You're not going to run?" Rian asked. "Would it help?" she replied. Her voice was steady, carrying no hint of fear. "You chase me. I'd escape. We'd waste time." He didn't like the way she said we. It sounded like she had already decided they were part of the same mission. "You're a Varen," he said, watching her reaction. Her silver-toned skin caught the dim docking bay light, making her features stand out smooth lines. High cheekbones, and those clear, steady eyes. She gave a small nod. Double quotes, "Yes. And before you ask, no. I'm not here for your embassy's secrets." "That's hard to believe," Rian replied. "Your people are experts at getting into places they shouldn't be." She gave a faint smile, not offended by the accusation. "And humans are experts at assuming the worst." Rian took a slow step closer. His scanner in his hand was still active, its small green light flickering. "If you didn't steal the quantum core, then why were you there?" Lyra folded her arms. "Because I knew who was going to take it. This was too neat, too well prepared." "You expect me to believe you were protecting it?" "Not protecting it," she said softly. "Intercepting it." Rian frowned. "Why?" Lyra's gaze shifted toward the far wall, as if she was weighing how much to tell him. Then she looked back. "Because the one who really wants it isn't just a thief. He's dangerous, and if he gets the core, entire worlds will burn." Her words were dramatic, maybe exaggerated, but there was a quiet conviction in her tone. She believed what she was saying, or she wanted him to think she did. "Who is he?" Rian asked. Lyra hesitated. "I'll tell you, but not here." 2. Many years in Kestron Prime. Rian considered this. The docking bay was empty except for them. But she wasn't wrong. Kestron Prime had more surveillance than most cities, and not all of it was legal. "Where then?" he asked. She stepped away from the shuttle she had been standing beside. "Follow me." "That wasn't going to happen." "You'll go where I choose," Rian said firmly. She tilted her head, that faint smile returning. "Then lead the way." "Officer." It was strange. She didn't seem like someone caught in a dangerous situation. There was no trembling, no panicked glances toward the exits. It was as if she wanted him to find her. They left the docking bay together, walking side by side, but with a small distance between them. Rian kept his scanner ready, but she made no move to attack or run. They blended back into the market crowd, passing traders, tourists, and patrolling security droids. The neon signs reflected in the metal walkway beneath their feet. Above them, glass towers stretched so high they vanished into the misty upper air. The smell of roasted street food mixed with the metallic tang of the city's recycling vents. "You move like a soldier," Rian said after a while. Lyra glanced at him. "I was trained to move quietly." "By who?" She didn't answer, and that silence told him more than any reply could. They turned into a smaller district, quieter than the market streets. Here, the buildings were older, made of faded metal and stone. A few children chased each other between the stalls, their laughter echoing off the walls. Finally, Rian led her into a repair shop run by an old friend, Yelen, a retired human pilot, who owed him a few favors. The front was filled with parts from old ships, but in the back was a small room Yelen used for private conversations. No cameras, no listening devices. Yelen gave Rian a questioning look as they passed, but Rian just said, "Need the room." Yelen shrugged and went back to sorting parts. In the back room, Rian shut the door and faced Lyra. "Talk." She studied him for a moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. Then she spoke. "The man you're looking for is Varen like me, but worse. His name is Corvin. He's a warlord, cast out from our government for crimes they couldn't even speak of in public. He's been hiding on the edges of the galaxy, gathering power." "And the quantum core?" Rian asked. "It's the last piece he needs for his weapon," she said. "A weapon big enough to erase an entire city in seconds. One shot. And there's nothing left but dust." Rian didn't move, but inside he felt the weight of her words. If what she said was true, this wasn't just a stolen technology case. It was a potential disaster, Why tell me this? He asked finally. Because I can't stop him alone. She said simply, and because if I tried to give the core to your embassy without proof, you'd lock me up and lose valuable time. Rian considered her. She could be lying, playing a deeper game. But there was something in her eyes, not desperation, but focus. The kind of focus he'd seen in people who had already made peace with taking risks that might cost their lives before he could respond. His communicator buzzed sharply. He answered. Rian, Control's voice said urgently, we've got movement. Unknown ships leaving docking bay 12. Repeat, multiple unknown ships. Heavy armament. Rian glanced at Lyra. She didn't look surprised. That will be Corvin. She said calmly, if you want the core, you'll have to move now. Rian narrowed his eyes. And you're just going to help me? She gave that small, knowing smile again. You don't have another choice. Rian didn't like being cornered, but he liked letting a warlord get away even less. They left the shop quickly, moving through the streets with purpose, somewhere in the maze of towers and docking platforms. A dangerous man was leaving the city, and walking beside him, Rian had a woman who might be the only one who could stop him or the one leading him into a trap. Either way, the game had begun. The air on Kestron Prime's upper docks was colder, sharper. From this height, the city stretched far below, a sea of lights broken by the black shapes of landing pads and transport towers. Rian moved quickly, his boots echoing against the metal walkway, while Lyra kept pace without a word. They reached docking bay 12 just as the heavy doors slid open. Beyond them, the smell of engine fuel mixed with the faint static of active shields. Several small ships sat ready, their engines humming. Most looked like ordinary freighters, but Rian knew appearances meant little in this city. Cargo ships could hide cannons. Smugglers could pose as traders, and spies could walk among diplomats. Control's voice crackled in his ear. Rian, scans show 3 ships powering up. One of them matches a vessel linked to off-world mercenaries. Corvin's men, Rian asked, likely. Control replied, but we can't confirm. Rian stepped inside, keeping Lyra close. But not too close. He didn't trust her, not yet. She moved with the ease of someone who knew docking bays well, her eyes flicking to each ship in turn. That one, she said quietly, pointing to a sleek black craft near the far wall. It's his. Rian studied it. The ship was small for a warlord's flagship, but he supposed that was the point. Something small could slip past blockades, vanish into asteroid fields, or dock unnoticed in busy ports. 2 armored figures stood guard at the ship's ramp. Their armor wasn't standard military, it was mismatched, probably scavenged from different battles, but the weapons in their hands looked well maintained. You're sure? Rian asked. Yes, Lyra replied. He uses a rotating set of ships. That one's his current favorite. Before Rian could decide their next move, a loud hiss filled the air, the sound of a fuel line being disconnected. The black ship's engines roared to life, a deep growl that made the metal floor vibrate. They're leaving, Rian said. Lyra's expression stayed calm. Then we follow. Getting to the ship wasn't going to be simple. The 2 guards were already scanning the area. If they saw him and recognized him as human security, they'd sound the alarm. Let me go first, Lyra whispered. Rian shook his head. Not happening. They know me, she said. If they see you, they'll shoot. If they see me, they might talk. That was the problem, might. But time was slipping away. The ship's ramp was already rising. Rian made a quick choice. Go. Lyra walked toward the guards with an easy, confident stride. She spoke to them in Varen, her words smooth and quick. One guard lowered his weapon slightly, but the other kept glancing toward the shadows where Rian stood. Rian tensed, ready to move if things turned bad. Then Lyra did something unexpected. She tossed a small metal device at their feet. It hissed, releasing a thick burst of harmless but blinding smoke. Now, she called. Rian sprinted forward. By the time the smoke cleared, both guards were on the ground, stunned but alive. Lyra was already at the ramp, holding it open just long enough for Rian to slip inside before it sealed shut. The ship's interior was dim, lit by narrow strips of blue light along the floor. Rian could feel the vibration of the engines as the Vessel lifted from the docking pad, somewhere deeper inside. Crew members were moving, shouting orders, preparing for departure. This was your plan? Rian whispered sharply. Get us trapped on his ship? It's the fastest way to find the core, Lyra said calmly, moving toward a side corridor. Corvin keeps it close to him. You could have mentioned that before, Rian muttered. They passed a storage bay filled with sealed crates, each marked with alien trade symbols. Some were probably legitimate cargo. Others, Rian didn't want to guess. Lyra stopped at a locked door. She pulled a small device from her belt, pressed it to the panel, and waited. The lock gave a soft click. Inside was a small room bare, except for a table covered in maps and star charts. In the center sat a metal case, no bigger than a briefcase, locked with a biometric seal. The quantum core, Rian asked. Lyra nodded. But it's coded to Corvin's DNA. We can't open it here. Rian stepped forward, but before he could take the case, a voice echoed from the doorway. Going somewhere? They both turned. A tall Varen stood there, wearing dark armor with a silver emblem on the chest. His eyes were sharp, his expression unreadable. Rian didn't need an introduction. This was Corvin. I should have known you'd show up, Corvin said to Lyra. His voice was smooth, but carried an edge. Still playing at being the hero? Lyra's shoulders stayed square. You'll never use the core. Corvin's gaze slid to Rian. And you brought a human. Bold. Stupid, but bold. Two more guards appeared behind him, weapons ready. Rian's mind raced. 3 enemies, one narrow room. No easy escape. Corvin stepped inside, his hand resting casually on the case. You can't stop me, Lyra. You never could. Rian moved slightly, positioning himself between Corvin and the door. His heart was steady, his breathing controlled. If they were going to get out of here alive, they'd have to do it together, whether he trusted Lyra or not. And judging by the way she met Corvin's gaze without flinching, she was ready for whatever came next. The air in the small room grew tense. Corvin stood tall, his silver-toned skin catching the dim light, while the 2 guards behind him tightened their grip on their weapons. Rian's mind ran through options, none of them good. Fighting here would be close, fast, and deadly. Lyra didn't move. Her calm expression hadn't changed since the moment Corvin appeared. You've taken enough from our people, she said, her voice steady. The core will never be yours, Corvin's gaze hardened. You always believed you knew what was best for everyone, but you don't understand power, Lyra. You never did. Rian shifted slightly, placing himself at an angle where he could see both Corvin and the guards. His hand rested on his compact shock emitter, hidden under his jacket. It wasn't lethal, but at close range it could drop someone long enough to move. You can leave, Corvin continued, his voice low. Both of you, walk away, and I might forget this insult. Lyra smirked faintly. That's not going to happen. The smirk seemed to irritate him more than her words. He took a step closer to the case on the table, placing one hand on it, as though it already belonged to him. Rian acted. He moved fast, drawing his shock emitter and firing at the nearest guard. The blue bolt struck the guard in the chest, sending him collapsing to the floor with a sharp grunt. Lyra reacted instantly. She kicked the table toward the second guard, knocking his weapon aside before he could fire. Corvin stepped back, his eyes flashing with anger. Foolish, Rian lunged for the case, grabbing it with one hand while keeping his emitter aimed at Corvin with the other. But before he could retreat, a sudden jolt of energy hit the wall beside him, showering sparks. More guards were coming. He could hear their boots pounding down the corridor. We need to move, Rian called. Lyra didn't argue. She darted toward the side wall, pressing a panel that slid open to reveal a narrow maintenance passage. This way. They squeezed inside just as more of Corvin's men stormed into the room. The passage was dim and cramped, forcing them to move quickly in single file. The hum of the ship's engines grew louder, a reminder that they were still far from safety. How did you know about this passage? Rian asked as they ran. I used to work on this ship, Lyra said without looking back. A long time ago. That answer raised questions Rian didn't have time to ask. The passage led to a hatch that opened into the engineering bay. The room was filled with humming machinery, glowing conduits, and the sharp scent of coolant. A lone engineer looked up in surprise at their sudden arrival. Lyra moved before the engineer could raise an alarm, pressing a small stun device to his shoulder. He slumped silently to the floor. "We'll be trapped if we head for the main hangar," Rian said. "I know," Lyra replied. "We're not going to the hangar." She pointed toward a small maintenance shuttle docked at the far side of the bay. It looked barely spaceworthy, but it had engines, and that was enough. As they crossed the engineering bay, alarms began to wail. Corvin's voice boomed over the ship's comm system. "Find them. Do not let them leave." Rian gritted his teeth. "We're running out of time." They reached the shuttle, and Lyra quickly keyed in a launch override. The hatch opened, and they scrambled inside. The cockpit was cramped with just his seats and a narrow panel of controls. Rian tossed the quantum core case into the bag and slid into the pilot's chair. "I hope this thing flies." "It will," Lyra said, strapping herself in. "Probably." "That's not very reassuring." Before Corvin's men could reach them, Rian powered the shuttle's engines. The ship vibrated, lights flickering as the small vessel came alive. He guided it toward the narrow exit tunnel at the side of the engineering bay. Blaster fire sparked against the shuttle's hull as they lifted off. Rian kept his hand steady on the controls, weaving through the tunnel and out into open space. The moment they cleared the main ship, Rian pushed the engines hard. The stars stretched into thin lines as the shuttle jumped to faster-than-light speed. The alarms faded into silence, replaced by the hum of the engines. They were free for now. Rian exhaled, leaning back in his seat. "You didn't mention we'd be stealing a ship too." Lyra shrugged lightly. "It's not stealing. It's borrowing." He gave her a look. "You're enjoying this." "A little," she admitted. For a moment, there was only the quiet hum of the shuttle. Then Rian turned serious. "You worked on Corvin's ship. Why?" Her expression changed slightly, becoming distant. "Before I knew what he was, I thought he was a leader worth following. Many of us did. He spoke of unity, strength, protection for our people. But it was all a mask. And when you found out the truth, I left," she said simply. "Not many have. Most who try don't survive." Rian studied her for a long moment. She spoke with no hesitation, no sign of lying. If she had been part of Corvin's crew once, she knew his weaknesses and his strengths. "We can't take him down alone," Rian said. "I know," Lyra replied. "But together, we have a chance. If you're willing to trust me." Trust. The word hung in the air between them. Rian still wasn't sure if he could give it, but she had risked herself to help him escape, and she had led him straight to the core. For now. That was enough. He glanced at the lock case in the back of the shuttle. The mission had changed. It wasn't just about recovering stolen property anymore. It was about stopping a warlord before he could burn entire worlds, and somehow, he and Lyra were now in it together. The maintenance shuttle floated quietly in the endless dark. Rian had reduced its speed, letting the engines cool after the risky escape. Outside the window, stars drifted slowly against the black canvas of space. Inside, the silence was heavier. Lyra sat in the co-pilot's seat, her eyes scanning a small navigation display. Rian sat beside her, his mind still replaying the last hour of the fight, the escape. And the sight of Corvin's cold eyes when the hatch closed between them. They had the quantum core. That should have been a victory. But Rian couldn't shake the thought that they were only at the beginning. "Where are we heading?" he asked finally. "There's a safe port on Vetra 9, Lyra replied without looking at him. "I know someone there who can help us decode the case. Once it's open, we'll have proof of what Corvin plans." "Someone you trust?" Rian asked. Her eyes flicked toward him for the briefest moment. Yes, that was the problem. He didn't know if he trusted her. Hours later, Lyra went to the back of the shuttle to rest. Rian stayed in the cockpit, hands resting on the controls. He told himself he was just being careful, but the truth was he was waiting for her to be out of sight. When he was sure she was asleep, he pulled the case toward him. The biometric lock still refused him, flashing red each time he tried. Frustrated, he set it aside and instead reached for the shuttle's internal systems. A few minutes of careful searching through the ship's comm records brought up something. strange and encrypted transmission sent during their escape. It had been routed through an auxiliary channel, hidden from the main logs. The timestamp matched the moment Lyra had stunned the engineer in the engine room. Rion's chest tightened. It could have been anything: an old log, a background system. But the encryption style, it was Varen. He copied the message to his wrist communicator and began decoding. The symbols shifted slowly, breaking apart under the software's work until words began to appear. Subject secured. Route to Vetra 9 confirmed. Will deliver once payment is arranged. Rian read it twice, his jaw tightening. It didn't say what subject. It didn't name a sender. But the implication was clear: someone had been promised delivery of something, or someone. His eyes went to the back of the shuttle, where Lyra was resting. When she returned to the cockpit later, she seemed calm, refreshed. We'll be in range of Vetra 9 in a few hours, she said. Rian didn't answer right away. He kept his gaze on the stars outside. You sent a transmission, he said at last. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What? During our escape from Corvin's ship, you contacted someone. Encrypted. Varen code. She didn't deny it. Instead, she folded her arms and looked at him evenly. I send a message to my contact on Vetra 9. They need to know we're coming. Your message said subject secured. Rion's voice was low, steady. Sounds like you're delivering me, or maybe the core, for the first time since he met her. Lyra's calm cracked just a little. It's not like that. Then explain it. She hesitated. My contact doesn't trust humans. If I told them I was bringing you, they wouldn't help. So I told them I had secured the subject, the core. Rian watched her closely. Her voice was steady again, but the pause before her answer had been real. He wanted to believe her, but the doubt was heavy. Before he could respond, a sharp alarm cut through the shuttle. The sensor display lit up with red indicators, multiple ships approaching fast. They weren't large, but their speed and formation told Rian exactly what they were. Attack craft. He said. Lyra moved quickly to the controls, scanning the incoming signals. Corvin's men. They must have tracked the shuttle. How? Rian demanded. Maybe they recognized the ship's ID, she said. Or maybe they intercepted my message. Rian gave her a hard look, but there was no time to argue. The first volley of fire hit the shuttle's shields, making the hull vibrate. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. They're trying to disable us, Rian said. If they get close enough, they'll board. Then we don't let them get close, Lyra replied. Her hands flying across the controls, Rian took the pilot's seat while Lyra handled the weapons system. The shuttle wasn't built for combat, but it had a small turret. The targeting display lit up as Lyra locked onto the nearest attacker. The space around them exploded with flashes of light. As the attackers fired again, Rian twisted the shuttle into a sharp roll, the stars spinning around them. One of the enemy ships overshot its mark, and Lyra's turret fire caught it across the wing. The craft spun out of control before vanishing into the dark. To left, Rian said. They're closing in, Lyra replied. The second attacker fired a grappling hook that clanged against the shuttle's hull. Rian cut the engines and let the ship drift suddenly, causing the attacker to overshoot. Lyra fired again, and the second craft erupted in a brief burst of flame. The third ship stayed at a distance, firing steadily to wear down their shields. Rian's hands tightened on the controls. We can't take much more of this, Lyra's eyes went to the navigation panel. If we divert to the asteroid field ahead, we might lose them. Might, Rian repeated, unless you have a better idea. Rian didn't. He angled the shuttle toward the dense cluster of dark rocks ahead. The asteroids spun slowly in the darkness, some the size of houses, others large enough to hide a warship. The third attacker followed, but its shots became less accurate as the rocks blocked its view. Rian weaved between the asteroids, the shuttle's hull groaning under the stress. A massive stone wall loomed ahead, and he angled sharply around it. The enemy ship tried to follow and clipped its wing on the asteroid's edge. The impact sent it tumbling into the darkness. Silence returned, broken only by the hum of the engines. Rian let out a slow breath. We're clear. Lyra sat back in her seat, her hands resting in her lap. You're welcome. Rian glanced at her. This isn't over. Her gaze met his evenly. No, it isn't. The trust between them had been fragile before. Now it felt like it was hanging by a single thread, and somewhere ahead, Veteran 9 waited, along with whoever Lyra had contacted. And Rian couldn't shake the question that kept echoing in his mind. Was she really on his side, or was she leading him exactly where she wanted? Stars blurred outside the viewport as the shuttle approached the massive shape of Corvin's flagship. Rian's heart beat faster, not from fear, but from the weight of what lay ahead. This was it, the final chance to stop a warlord who held the power to destroy worlds. Lyra sat beside him, her expression steady but intense. Neither spoke much as they prepared to board the ship. The quantum core, locked tight in the metal case, felt heavier than ever. The shuttle docked silently in a hidden bay. The airlock hissed open, revealing cold steel corridors lit by harsh white lights. The ship was quiet to quiet. Stay close, Rian whispered. We don't know how many guards are here. Lyra nodded. Corvin will be waiting. They moved through the corridors, shadows stretching long in the dim light. Rian's fingers brushed the small stun pistol at his side. Every step felt like a countdown. Suddenly, the silence broke. Alarms blared as red lights flashed an alert of intruders. Somewhere ahead, heavy footsteps echoed, growing louder. Guards, Lyra said. We need to split up. Rian hesitated. No, together. Trust me, she said, eyes locking with his. Reluctantly, Rian agreed. They took a narrow side passage leading to the ship's command center. The hallways twisted and turned, but Lyra moved with purpose. Corvin's chamber is just ahead, she said. Rian's breath caught as they neared a large reinforced door. On the other side, he could hear muffled voices. Corvin speaking, his voice cold and commanding. They hid in the shadows, waiting for the right moment. When the door slid open, Corvin stepped out. Flanked by 2 armored guards, he paused, sensing something was wrong. I know you're here, he said. Show yourselves. Without hesitation, Lyra stepped forward, her eyes blazing with defiance. It's over, Corvin. Corvin smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You don't understand what you're stopping. Rian appeared beside Lyra, drawing his stun pistol. The guards raised their weapons, but Lyra was faster. She threw a small device at their feet, a flash grenade that exploded with a bright light and loud bang. The guards stumbled, blinded and disoriented. Rian fired his stun pistol, hitting one guard in the shoulder. The other guard lunged, but Lyra caught his wrist, twisting it until the weapon clattered to the floor. The fight was quick but fierce. Within moments, both guards were unconscious. Corvin's eyes narrowed. You think this ends here? Lyra stepped closer to the metal case on the table. The core is safe. Corvin's gaze snapped to it. Give it to me. No, Lyra said. Not while you live. Corvin lunged forward, but Rian caught him with a stun blast that sent the warlord reeling. He fell against the table, knocking the case to the floor. The case clicked open. Inside, the quantum core pulsed with a soft blue light, its energy humming. In the small space, Lyra reached in carefully, her fingers tracing the surface now. She said to Rian. Together, they activated a device that began decoding the core's lock. It was delicate work. The core's security was meant to keep out anyone but Corvin. Suddenly, Corvin recovered and charged again, more furious than before. Rian stepped in front of Lyra, blocking the warlord's path. They grappled briefly, each trying to gain the upper hand. Corvin was strong, but Rian had training and determination. Lyra finished unlocking the core's case just as Corvin broke free. She grabbed the core and held it high. Your power ends now, she declared. Corvin lunged one last time, but a hidden security drone activated, stunning him with a blast of electricity. Rian and Lyra exchanged a quick glance, relief mixed with exhaustion. With Corvin incapacitated, Lyra secured the quantum core in a special containment field. We need to get off this ship, she said. Reinforcements will arrive soon. Rian nodded, agreed. They moved quickly through the ship's corridors, retracing their steps. The alarms had stopped, but the danger wasn't over. Back at the shuttle, they launched just as Corvin's men began to regroup. The stars rushed past as they jumped to faster-than-light speed. leaving the warlord and his warship behind. As the shuttle steadied, Rian looked at Lyra. You were right. We couldn't stop him alone. She smiled faintly. We're stronger together. He reached out, pulling her close for the first time since they met. The tension between spy and soldier shifted into something unspoken, a promise that whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The mission was over, but their story was just beginning. The shuttle's engines hummed quietly as it cruised through the calm space between star systems. Rian sat by the window, watching stars drift slowly past. The weight of the past days hung on his shoulders, but for the first time, there was a sense of hope. Lyra was beside him, her usual calm replaced by a soft smile. The tension that had wrapped around them like armor had eased, at least for now. Do you think Corvin will try again? Rian asked, breaking the silence. Lyra looked out at the stars before answering. Power like his doesn't disappear easily, but he's captured, and with the core safe, his plans are finished for now. Rian nodded. We did good. We did, she agreed. But this mission was more than just recovering the core. It was about trust, about working together even when it seemed impossible. Their eyes met, and in that quiet moment, something unspoken passed between them. They had come into this mission as strangers, maybe even enemies. Now, they were partners united by a bond stronger than fear or suspicion. When they reached Vetra 9, the reception was cautious but respectful. Lyra's contact, a calm and wise Varen named Talon, met them at the docking station. His eyes were sharp but kind, and he wasted no time getting to work on decoding the quantum core. Rian watched as Lyra explained the events, the theft, the escape, the battle with Corvin. Talon listened carefully, nodding with understanding. The cores. Technology is dangerous, Talon said later, but with this information, we can secure it so it cannot be misused. Rian felt relief. The crisis was over. The galaxy was safe for now. Days passed, and with each one, Rian and Lyra grew closer. They trained together, shared stories, and planned for the future. The walls between their worlds were breaking down. One evening, under the glow of twin moons on Vetra 9, they stood side by side overlooking a quiet valley. Do you think there's a place for someone like me in your world? Lyra asked softly. Rian smiled. There's a place for anyone who fights for what's right. She looked at him with a small smirk. Even a Varen spy, especially a Varen spy, he said. They laughed, the sound light and free. For the first time, the future seemed full of possibilities. Not threats, but the galaxy was vast, and danger still lurked in shadows. Corvin's followers would not forget their leader's defeat. There would be challenges ahead, new missions, new battles. Yet Rian and Lyra faced those unknowns together. Their bond was proof that even in the darkest times, trust and courage could light the way. As the stars shone overhead, they knew this was only the beginning of a story worth telling, one where to unlikely allies became something more. Sam was not the kind of man who expected surprises in space. He worked as a maintenance hand on the cargo ship Morning Star, a slow and steady freighter that carried goods between colonies. His days were mostly filled with fixing small leaks, tightening bolts, and making sure the engines did not fall apart halfway through the trip. It was not exciting work, but it paid enough for food, and in space, food was all you could ask for. That day, the ship was gliding through the quiet darkness between two trade stations. Sam had been in the maintenance bay, checking the oxygen recyclers, when the ship's sensors made a small, unusual sound. It was not the alarm for danger. It was softer, more like a gentle ping. Curious, Sam walked to the nearest screen. A blinking icon appeared. Unidentified object detected. Outer perimeter. It was small, just big enough to be an escape pod. Sam frowned. An escape pod out here, he muttered to himself. The Morning Star was days away from the nearest station. For a pod to be drifting alone in this empty region was strange to strange. The captain's voice came over the intercom. Engineering. Report on that object. Sam pressed the button. Looks like a pod, Captain. Drifting. No weapons. No heat signatures except one life form. Still breathing. There was a pause. Then the captain replied, bring it in carefully. If it's dangerous, we'll jettison it." Sam nodded and set the retrieval system into motion. The pod was pulled into the docking bay by a magnetic grappler. Once it was inside, the airlock sealed, and Sam stepped forward, wearing a light-breathing mask just in case the air inside the pod was toxic. When the hatch opened, Sam froze. Inside was a figure tall, elegant, and unlike any human he had ever seen. The skin had a faint shimmer, almost like the surface of water under moonlight. Her hair was long and smooth, a deep shade that shifted between dark blue and silver as she moved. Her clothes were torn in places, and she seemed barely conscious. Her eyelids half closed. Sam could tell she was breathing, but her movements were weak. Without thinking, he stepped in and lifted her out. She was surprisingly light, but there was a sense of strength hidden under her stillness. Her eyes opened briefly, striking, luminous, and strangely calm despite her state. She looked at him, and her lips moved, forming a word he could not understand. Then she closed her eyes again. Sam's first thought was simple: she's freezing. Her skin felt cold, almost icy. The cargo bay was not warm, and the ship's standard temperature was set for human comfort. Not whatever species she was. The captain's voice came again over the intercom. "Medical bay is full. We're running short on space, and the doc says the stasis pods are all taken." Sam looked down at the woman in his arms. "She won't last in the cold," he said. "Then you'll have to find somewhere to keep her alive until we reach port," the captain replied, his tone making it clear he didn't care much about the details. Sam sighed. He could not leave her in the cargo bay, and the ship didn't have any private quarters to spare. That left only one option: his own small cabin. Sam's cabin was not much, just a narrow room with a single bed, a desk, and a small storage unit. It was warmer than the rest of the ship, mostly because Sam liked to keep it that way. The heating system hummed softly as he carried the alien woman inside. He laid her gently on the bed, pulling the thin blanket over her. She did not stir, but her breathing seemed a little steadier. Sam sat in the chair by the desk, unsure of what to do next. He had seen aliens before. Trade stations often hosted dozens of species, but never one like her. There was something regal about her, even in her unconscious state. Hours passed. Sam checked on her now and then, making sure she was still breathing. At one point, he brought a small thermal blanket from storage and tucked it over her. He even gave her the small heating pad he sometimes used when the ship's nights felt too cold. By the time the ship's lights dimmed for the sleep cycle, Sam was still awake, leaning against the desk. He was not sure why he felt responsible for her, but he did. The next morning, according to ship time, Sam woke to the sound of movement. He sat up to see the alien woman sitting on the edge of his bed. Her eyes were fully open now, sharp and aware. She studied the room for a moment before looking at him. "You," she said, in accented but clear standard speech. Sam blinked. "Me? You brought me here," she said. It was not a question, it was a statement. "Well, yeah," Sam replied, scratching the back of his neck. "Found you in an escape pod. You were freezing." She tilted her head slightly, as if measuring his words. Then she looked down at the blanket, running her fingers over the fabric. "Warm," she said simply. Sam nodded. "Glad it's working." She looked back at him with an expression he could not read. "You give me warmth. This bed, ours?" Sam's eyes widened. "Ours?" She nodded once, firmly, as if the matter were decided. Then she lay back down, pulling the blanket over herself again. Sam just sat there, unsure if he had just made a friend, a guest, or something much more complicated. Either way, he had a feeling life on the Morning Star was about to get a lot less boring.